A warm Mark Thompson Show welcome for Belinda Waymouth, everybody. Hi, Belinda.
Thanks so much. Hey, Mark, how are you?
We are well. Everything's actually really cool in this new space. So we hope to be able to talk to you every week in your regular time period. And I'll also tell you this, normally we'll give you more time than this. Today we've run a little bit late, so we're just kind of finding our way in terms of timing. So don't mean to cut you short today like we used to have to, because we had, 25 minutes of commercials on the old place. But it's great to have you in the mix. I'd mentioned plastic, and I know that this is something that you wanted to talk about. Plastic, along with forever chemicals. These are things that have now infested our environment in ways that are affecting our health dramatically.
Yeah. Well, when you mentioned before that some Nestle's cookies had to be recalled because they had plastic in them, I was like, yeah, Nestle strikes again. I tweeted that out the research by Orb Media yesterday, and I know I pinged you on it, about the bottled water, because Orb Media did this really fantastic investigative reporting. And first of all, they looked at tap water. Are we drinking plastic in our tap water? And lo and behold, yes, we are. And the two worst offenders for the countries that they visited around the world, one was Lebanon and the other was the US. And in the US, they found plastic in water in the visitors' room on Capitol Hill, in the faucets. It's everywhere. And then they did bottled water. And they took, I think it was 10 different brands. Nestle in one bottle, had almost 10,000 microplastic pieces in one bottle of water, if you can believe it.
No, it's not enough. No, Belinda, let me ask you, though, when you say that, I have no way to, first of all, it should be zero, I get it, but I have no way to square that with, like, how does that compare to tap water, for example, or, you know what I mean?
Well, tap water, they didn't do it by liter, which they did with the bottled water, because the crazy thing with bottled water is everyone thinks they're drinking something that's healthier and better for them. But, right. It's crazy to be drinking water out of a plastic bottle because, number one, there are all those chemicals in plastic. The hotter the plastic gets, the more the chemicals are going to leach into the liquid inside it. In the, processing, the winding on of a plastic lid on a plastic bottle, little microplastics are going to get in there. And of course, these plastics are, they're naked to the human eye. And when we're talking about nano, these microplastics, these are nano, they're so tiny. They're 1,000th of a millimeter in diameter. They're not even as, they're infinitesimal. They're tinier than a blade of hair. So we don't see them. But the crazy thing is, they're not just in our cookies and our bottled water. They're found in our salt. They're in IPA beers. So yes, we're ingesting them. And the thing about how tiny they are, because the thing that's really important for people to understand about plastic is plastic doesn't biodegrade easily. It's not broken down by microbes in the natural world, like most other, like organic, materials are. Is in the presence of sunlight, it photodegrades, meaning it breaks down into smaller and smaller pieces. So that's why it's such a problem in the ocean, because there it is floating on the surface of the ocean, absolutely, with more sunlight than it knows what to do with. And that's why we have, what they call the Great Pacific Garbage Patch out in the Pacific Ocean, which, by the way, that's not an actual, they say it's the size of Texas. You can't go out there and walk on it. It's like a soup. It's these tiny, tiny pieces as well that break down. And because plastic...
And it extends all the way down. It's interesting. We always talk about those scoopers that they this kid in, in Oakland has this new device that he is debuting in San Francisco Bay, which scoops up all of the plastic. Or you'll see, and that is innovative. But the reality is that's the plastic on the surface. The kind of plastic inundation when it comes to the oceans extends all the way down to the ocean floor.
Yeah, it's all the way down the water column is what it's called, from the surface to the seafloor. Yeah, no, it's ubiquitous. It's everywhere, and because it's these tiny pieces,
Go ahead. Yes.
Thank you. I love to be dinged.
Yeah.
We're really in trouble with this plastic, and so the two things I wanted to talk about today, one of them is this scientist, and his whole thing, first of all, was oil spills. How do we get the oil out of the ocean? Well, as our listeners may or may not know, but plastic is a hydrocarbon. It comes from oil. So when we are refining oil, we get methane and ethane, the two gases, natural gas, and those are the feedstocks that then make polyethylene, which is what we, get our water bottles from. So plastic is a hydrocarbon. It comes from oil. So the scientist, who was really busy, looking at how do we get horrible oil spills, out of the ocean, he was then like, plastic comes from oil, and we've got a real problem in our ocean with all this plastic. It's crazy. How could we get rid of it? And so he's come up with this idea, and it sounds, I want to spin this so positively, Mark, I do. But he wants to turn, plastic waste into a protein powder that we could then turn into a protein drink and drink. And it sounds, completely crazy.
Ooh, it's a wild idea, but it just might work.
Might it work or not?
Well, the thing about it is, all these ideas are sort of great, because the thing is, we are going to have to look, for innovation as well as, making less plastic. Right now, the plastics industry are not going in a reverse, direction. They're full steam ahead. They've got all this methane and ethane because of all the fracking that we did, which I have said to you before, bridge to renewables. That fracking was a bridge to nowhere, because we did not need all that ethane and methane. And then what happened was the oil industry went, wow, we've got all this, methane and ethane, and we're our big oil bonanza because everyone wants renewable energy and it's not popular anymore. How can we continue the money machine? And they built cracker facilities, which is where they turn the methane and ethane into plastic. They spent billions, and this is in the past decade, all across the US, across Europe, across China.
So you're saying, look, they're committed to more plastic production to use some of these, some of the blow off from their production.
Yeah.
And so that's not going
absolutely.
anywhere.
Yeah, it's a cash cow, and they want to keep making money. And so, so then you've got scientists coming up with these, these sort of two-pronged solution. We're going to have a food scarcity problem. We've got a plastic pollution problem. Hey, what about if we turn the plastic into something we can eat? So I'll just go through the process of how you make the protein powder. So you get
please do.
Yeah, it's fascinating. So you get little microbes. And, microbes are great, bacteria, and they are made up of protein, lipids, fats, vitamins, like our cells and all the things that we need. And you take the plastic and you pre-treat it, you heat it into this oily sludge, because otherwise the bacteria, it would take them years to be able to digest the plastic. So if you make it into this oily sludge, the bacteria can digest it in a matter of, days as opposed to years. And then they very sweetly call it, pasteurize the bacteria after it's eaten all the plastic. You basically kill it, you cook it, and then you've got this pasteurized bacteria, which you turn into a protein powder, and then, voila, breakfast.
Wow, that is wild. It really is wild.
Yeah. So far it's a little bit yeasty, they say. The protein powder they've made so far sort of smells a bit like Vegemite. And it would have to, pass food safety regulations. It would have to be scalable. It's got to be safe. It's got to be palatable. And also it takes so much energy to heat all the plastic to turn it into the sludge. And so you'd also have to have, renewable energy sources to do it. So that's,
I just see it as an odd pitch. You can get all the Instagram influencers you want to try to pitch protein powder that's made of plastic. It just feels as though they'll come up with a different word for plastic. That's what they'll do, because everyone's going to say, yeah, and it's made of plastic. Wow.
Well, what about
great? I can't wait to drink it.
Let's call it Meta, Mark, shall we?
Yeah, no, exactly. They will rebrand it. This is coming. And, There's no way they're going to call it plastic. But
I have a question, if I could ask this, because I'm curious. What happens to plastic when humans ingest it? Does it get expelled with waste, or does it stay inside of us? You talked about it being, not big enough for the human eye to see. So is it small enough to be absorbed into tissue? What does it mean when we eat all those plastic things floating around in the water bottle?
Yeah, so this is the horrible thing, Kim, and it's such a good question to ask, because I think our listeners really need to know this. Is this, plastic is small enough when we're ingesting it. I mean, they're finding it in our poop. So it is, there are bits that are passing through us.
That's what they were doing in my poop. I wondered what that was.
yeah.
Looking for plastic.
Get out of Mark Thompson's rear end.
Yeah, really. All right.
Yeah, I was going to say
so they're finding it everywhere.
Cookies.
But the one thing I would ask is, I didn't mean to cut you off, but if they're finding it in our excrement, is it possible, to Kim's question, to get rid of it all? Does the body get rid of it all? I guess the answer is no, based on what I've read.
No, this is the thing that's so terrible, is because when it's this, when it's these nanoparticles, it's small enough to, get from our bloodstream into our organs. And this is what they're saying, is they're finding it in our liver, in our, in our kidneys. So it's crazy. We're ingesting our own waste, and it's toxic. The thing about plastic being a hydrocarbon is that all them persistent organic pollutants, POPs, and the persistent organic pollutants are really ghastly things, flame retardants and, all these, fertilizers and things, all these nasty things that stick to the plastic are then in these tiny little plastic particles that are getting inside us and into our organs. So this is a big problem, and I don't think we can drink it all up as protein powder. I do have to say one really positive thing that happened this year as far as plastic waste goes. And I know I'm often talking about California, but we do really have some, groundbreaking legislation that happens here. We were the first ones to ban the micro pellets in beauty products, facial cleansers, the tiny little exfoliating plastic pellets, they were in whitening toothpaste. California was the first state that said, hey, no more microplastics, in our personal hygiene products. So the other thing that happened was, in June, we passed this thing called the California Plastic Prevention and Packaging Producer Responsibility Act. And people, the reason I'm so excited about that is because right in the name it says producer responsibility, because the producers of plastic have absolutely been absolved of any sort of responsibility for the recycling of it, the collection of it, what happens next. I say this over and over again. As soon as that bottle of Coke, goes across the counter and you pick it up and you pay the money for it, Coca-Cola has no more responsibility for that plastic bottle. Well, that's all going to change in California. And what we do here, other states around the US go, hey, we want to do that too. We don't want our rivers, our lakes, our ocean, our waterways. We don't want them full of plastic. We want producers, not just consumers, to be part of the cleanup. And this Producer Responsibility Act, the producers are going to have to be part of funding and building recycling that's onshore, because we used to be, exporting all our plastic nonsense to China. Well, eventually they woke up and said, hey, Western world, no thanks to all your plastic trash. We don't want it, which was completely fair enough. Why should they have to take the world's garbage?
That really got extreme at the start of COVID. We really got we got the pushback. And essentially, as Belinda said, all that stuff exists here. And you have been pushing for this for a long time. You've made this point repeatedly. I think it's such a good one. Why do we, the consumers, pay for the product? We have the plastic, and yet now we have to figure out what to do with all of this plastic that's inundating our environment, while those who are the producers of the plastic just keep producing more. I mean, they pay no price. They don't have to endure the consequence in any way. So what you're talking about is huge. I'm out of time. I love that you are part of this premiere month as we launch. You'll be here every Thursday at this time. And I know we leave a lot of stuff on the table every time. As I say, we'll have more next time. You can reach Belinda on social media. Belinda Waymouth is Waymouth. Belinda Waymouth. is everywhere. Find her on Instagram, find her on Twitter, and you can find her here on Thursdays, just after Kim's News at 11:30. Belinda, thank you so much.
Thanks, Belinda.
My pleasure.
Bye, Belinda.
Bye.